This is an updated version of the talk I gave in Dublin at the European Site Reliability Engineering Conference in October 2024. I've updated some of the information and I've added some of the slides where there were time constraints. I'm going to record this in 3 sections. This is the introduction. I hope to update this periodically and try and keep it up to date. I've been a sysadmin for 33 years. For the last 18 years, I've been working at a charity that has a sizable estate of hardware. While my day job is not directly relevant to this talk, I find it useful to be able to install bare metal machines at scale, not to be afraid of large systems, and be used to specifying hardware. I'm an amateur SRE. I've been a member of the Organisation of Transformative Works for 14 years. For the last 11 years, I've been the technical lead of the systems group and a member of AD&T, the group that has commit access to the repo and designs new features. Fanfic is transformative stories based on established IP, but not written for commercial gain. We're inclusive of content. Queer content was often removed from other sites. Because of this, we're blocked in Russia and China. The archive was created because fanfiction kept on being deleted. It's part of a GIF culture. We want to resist censorship, whatever the source. This means we reduce the number of levers others can have upon us. For example, not having advertising means we can't be forced to drop content due to losing advertising revenue. We collect minimal data. If we don't have it, we can't be forced to disclose it. And as a point of principle, we own our own servers to make it harder to deplatform us. The Organisation for Transformative Works is a 501c3. The org has an elected board and collects donations. The main product, although not the only project of the Organisation for Transformative Works, is the archive of our own, known as AO3. These are my own views. I do not speak on behalf of the Organisation for Transformative Works. Google implemented prefetching for us. This is from the introduction of a document that was shared. The last line says, because of its popularity, improving page load speed for them can move the global average user experience. We average about 1,100 page views a second. The rate of change of page views is not constant. Generally, September and October are quiet months. The APM software has become unreliable and has been replaced. Cloudflare gives us more accurate page view numbers. I've seen Cloudflare report that the archive has had over 112 million page views a day, on a single day. The least I've seen is about 87 million. It costs us nothing to be down. For us, putting the site into maintenance mode means that some deploys and changes are considerably easier, because we don't have to run code that supports serving more than one way of doing things at a time. If there's a migration that touches hot tables, we can shed the load so we can run the migration without serving pages. We've spent about 44k on new hardware in 2021. In 2022, we bought 3 expensive database servers at about $67,000 a machine. Our only significant variable cost is how much we spend on new hardware. In 2023, we bought some storage and virtualization systems. We spent $270,000 in total, or about $740 a day. We didn't spend any money on new servers in 2024. This was a mistake. We needed more machine resources than we had at the end of the year. We managed to stay online by moving resources around, but this did move us further towards instability. The reason for this is that we needed more Elasticsearch capability, but we waited until the Zen5C processors were available. In effect, this will mean the machines will probably last an extra 18 months or so. So we delayed spending about $100,000 by 2 years in about 5 years' time. This is a complete guess. This year, we've ordered 5 new Elasticsearch servers costing $112,000. I've sent in a requisition for 5 new MariaDB servers at about $300,000. To host these servers, we'll need more power. This will cost $14,000 in power distribution, and the power will cost $5,000 to install. The new power will cost an additional $4,000 a month. Given it's the start of March, and I've requested spending $450,000 already, the only other expense I can see is replacing our firewalls and border gateway with modern hardware, which will be relatively cheap. The exchange rate for the Altairian dollar seems to be highly variable. Having no employees means that all the work in the archive is done in people's spare leisure time. but it does mean that we don't have to worry about paying for people's salaries. Given we have no employees, how does anything get done at all? We have a large number of volunteers. However, some people are in multiple groups. The two groups I'm a member of, AD&T has 11 people and Systems has 8, and both groups share 2 people between them. Not everyone turns up to the meetings every week. Not everyone does work every week. The choices and therefore our environments are shaped by constraints. The choices you make have to be right for you and for your constraints. We don't have to make a profit. Most people do. Our founders were worried about being deplatformed, so we have no advertising, only donations. The less we know about our users, the better. We can't tell if a user is a donator or not. Worrying about being deplatformed is the main reason why we own the servers. We have no incentives to drive people back to the site. It costs us money to provide a service. An example of this is the conscious choice not to have an algorithmic recommendation system. We care about preserving FIG. If we're offline, it's not a complete disaster. The choices made 14 years ago still steer our decisions today. In 2009, our first 2 servers were installed. I joined the org in January 2011. Not long after, our MySQL server was going really slowly. It was being crushed under the load of requests, mostly sorts. So we migrated the MySQL temp to TempFS and things went much better for a bit. 9 months later, the database server was yet again being crushed under the load. This time, after a lot of discussion, we disabled a core feature, tag searching and filtering. We didn't have the hardware to do this using MySQL. We didn't have enough money to throw hardware at the problem. We also moved the servers behind a firewall. I was relieved. It took another 6 months before tag searching and filtering were re-implemented using Elasticsearch pre 1.0. We didn't have any spare machines for Elastic servers, so we co-located Elastic on the application servers. This was actually, in many ways, a harder time to look after the archive than today, as we were beginning to get a fair amount of traffic, many tens of pages a second, but we hadn't learned how to handle the load. We didn't have a lot of money to spend on new hardware. In 2012, we moved from pets to cattle by moving to CF Engine instead of making changes by hand. Migrating to Galera has meant I got a lot more sleep. Having 3 MySQL servers rather than 1 is a big improvement. When we migrated text fields from UTF-8 MB3 to UTF-8 MB4, we learned to love PT Online schema change. COVID and lockdown meant there was a 20% increase in traffic, going from 280 million page views a week to 340 million 2 weeks later. We had to disable features to reduce database load until they were re-implemented. In 2013, we were hit with a DDoS attack we couldn't ignore. Our data center reported they saw traffic exceeding 1.2 terabits per second for short periods of time. We needed help from a DDoS protection service, and we created a free account with Cloudflare. At the same time, we made a request for a business account with our finance committee. A fan who was working at Cloudflare and knew as a volunteer reached out on Discord and guided me through requesting support from Project Galileo, which is Cloudflare's assistance program for vulnerable organizations. We're back online 5.5 hours after we created the free account, running under Project Galileo. Later attacks had apparently peaked at 65 million requests per second. Hardware is not our only expense. Our hosting fees are dependent on how many racks we have, currently 3, and how much bandwidth we use, about 600 megabits per second. We also pay for spam protection and an issue tracking system. There are 2 donation drives a year. The majority of our income comes from these. We rely on volunteers and passionate small dollar donors. We have about 15,000 members of the org, each of which will have donated a minimum of $10. The only privilege is being able to vote in the elections for the board of directors and small bits of merchandising. Companies provide free services for not-for-profits. Sentry offered us a free service when our previous APM provider withdrew the product we were using. When the internet links to Australasia were congested and people were having trouble connecting to us, Cloudflare added Argo Smart Routing to our free account, which has a list price of about $17,000 a month for our bandwidth. The Systems Committee are the org's SRE team. We use Fay to install the operating system on bare metal machines and Ansible to configure the operating systems and application stack. We have CI for our Ansible. For a change, I've got the acknowledgements in the middle. AD&T are the core contributors who steer the project. We design features and choose the contents of each release. We have access to the Rails console and use this to provide support to other committees. I do want to highlight that even though we have good code coverage at 93%, all issues are still manually verified by 2 different people, not including the coder. Problems do still get past us into production. It's hard to test at scale. A popular endpoint has 137 millisecond response time at the 97th percentile and 191 milliseconds at the 99th percentile. We're a 16-year-old Rails monolith. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, but I still think Rails is a good choice today. One of the reasons we chose Rails was that it follows convention over configuration. If you follow the conventions, then lots of work is already done for you. The choice of Rails was steered by one of the early ideas. We wanted lots of people to be able to contribute and for them to be able to do so, even if they were beginners. We use Rails in the normal way that relies on a relational database, so migrating to a NoSQL database for core data is not an option. I found that MySQL is hard to scale compared to Elastic and simple app servers. Shout out to Sarkin, who really keeps everything together. We're not a normal open source project. Only some people inside the org can make an issue. We only accept pull requests for which an issue has been created. Other groups have brought up instances of the archive, however, it's not easy. The archive software is not designed for others to use easily. There are lots of moving components and assumptions about how the software stack is deployed. The archive was created to protect fan works. We work on the principle of a gift culture where effort is gifted to others without expectation of future rewards. This is why using the archive for commercial gain is against the terms of service.